brought my as I have my panel of rock stars, I threw back my rock star T-shirt. So I have a throwback background of what the first floor used to be. So those that were with us yesterday got the tour of the new first floor, and so I figured I'd bring the old 80s style rock and roll T-shirt with me, to this panel with a great group of folks, and we're really excited to be joining you. Second time for me on stage today. First time that you'll meet this esteemed panel. And certainly we want to talk a little bit about, and you heard me talk about earlier this morning, about deployment of these things and making sure that we're aligned. We're all driving to the same mission. And one of the big parts of our educational workforce development mission is aligning in mission, aligning in passion, making sure that we're all driving together to make an impact, and that we're leveraging these opportunities that are built through various sources that live within the Institute, as that library analogy of making sure these books don't just sit on shelves. They get checked out of the library, they're used, they're deployed in these communities and those kind of things. And so we're going to talk through some experiences and some opportunities here with the panel with us today. What I'd like to do is do a round robin of introductions. You all, I think, have met me this morning. I'm Josh Cramer, Director of Education and Workforce Development here at America Makes. I have the blessed privilege of leading our educational workforce development strategy here at the Institute. I will ask Miss Jessica to introduce yourself.
All right, very good. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Jessica Borza. I'm the Executive Director of the Mahoning Valley Manufacturers Coalition. We're an industry sector partnership led by industry, but joined with our partners in education and workforce to help address manufacturing workforce challenges. Pleased to be here.
Thanks, Jessica. Miss Cindy Waters.
Hello, all. I am Cindy Waters. I am a Naval Surface Warfare Center Carderock full-time employee, but I also coordinate the Manufacturing Engineering Education Program for ONR. There's 13 different great programs centered around manufacturing education workforce development. But in my other role, I actually need that workforce. So I'm a principal investigator and researcher for additive manufacturing and materials. So I see both sides.
Great. Thank you, Cindy. Mr. Mike Vasquez.
Hey, everyone. Thanks, Josh. My name is Mike Vasquez. I am CEO of 3 Degrees. We're a Chicago-based independent technology agnostic 3D printing consulting company. We kind of take the insights that we've gleaned from the consulting to do two things. One, a lot of work in software development and data management through our Trace AM program and software. And then for today's talk, we're going to be talking about another organization we kind of spun out this summer called AMX, or the Advanced Manufacturing Experience, which we created to develop an on-ramp for disadvantaged regions looking to get into additive manufacturing and advanced manufacturing topics.
Thank you, Mike. Mr. Lawrence Minnick.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. This is Lawrence Minnick, Senior Principal Engineer at Raytheon's Additive Manufacturing Process and Capability Center. I basically have two functional roles. I lead additive manufacturing technology development and product integration efforts at Raytheon. And my second role is to develop and deploy our AM training curriculum within the business to accelerate additive adoption and industrialization. So, essentially I design a lot in additive and I teach a lot. So it's a pretty awesome job.
Thank you. Thank you, Lawrence. Mr. Hareen, contractor.
Thanks, Josh, for having us. Hareen Contractor. I'm a senior policy advisor here at the National Economic Council at the White House. Done a number of work with a lot of other manufacturing development. Long experience in not only workforce, but digital equity and broadband. And so really excited about the work you all are doing, all on the forefront, and look forward to partnering with you all to help reshore our efforts and create more resilient domestic manufacturing base.
Thank you, sir, and appreciate that. And as I mentioned, just like our portfolio, a very diverse group of folks here today that really represents all of the organizations, whether community-based, whether federal partners, whether state, local organizations, associations, industry members, all represented across our portfolio. And so I wanted to pull together this group to kind of talk from the different perspectives that we have specifically around Our 15 and growing projects that we talked about this morning, our K to Gray strategy, making sure that we're working on talent pipeline all the way up through career pathways into both additive manufacturing and advanced manufacturing in those opportunities to reskill and upskill adults. And really, as we always say, to meet learners from any walk of life where they learn, how they learn. And so making sure that we have those opportunities and lower those barriers as an institute to bring that value into a community as well. And so one of the things I mentioned this morning was, our big focus on national strategy, local impact. And that's really a big initiative of ours. We talked about AM Nation specifically, and really the deployment of these best practices out into these local communities with partners, specifically. But part of this mission for us, and when we set off and kind of reignited the work that we do in education workforce development, we're not doing that alone. We're not sitting and saying it's just us, playing in the sandbox. We want to have multitude of partners at various levels. And so it's important for us to align in strategy and align in mission in those kind of things. And so obviously we do that across, the Office of Secretary of Defense and the defense strategy around AM. We also want to do that around, the Department of Defense's STEM office, right? And the work that they do downstream in the K-12 environment. We work closely with the U.S. Department of Education, obviously working very close with Cindy and the team at ONR and the MEET program that you heard her mention earlier, the WHO and the work that Hareen's doing, economic development and workforce, they marry tremendously, right? It takes one to do the other. We've heard workforce now for 2 days about how the struggle and what that does with companies and the opportunities. And so, I'm going to throw this first kind of question to Cindy and Hareen. And really, we see a tremendous value in aligning these missions, right? And making sure that our strategies match and they mirror. Can you talk a little bit about how you see the value in the Institute aligning in those and the value that it brings to your work in your organizations as well? And Cindy, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Great question, Josh. It's interesting. So the reason I couldn't participate more in this event earlier today is I have been in a Naval Warfare Center strategic planning meeting all day. And so what came up over and over again in all the department chairs and the high-level briefs was workforce. Critical need for now, critical need for 10 years from now, critical need to continue to develop. So we are very strategically aware of the need to have an educated and motivated workforce. And so, the strategic alignment of, for instance, the MEEP program. So MEEP is the Manufacturing Engineering Education Program. And in that program, which was a congressional ask amount of money given from OUSD, or run from ONR, there are a variety of different, focus areas. We've got composites areas. We have the additive manufacturing area. We work with a couple of the other manufacturing institutes, LIFT. Next, Flex Factor. We work with. We've got one dealing with photonics. So these definitely need to be strategically focused and be need based. I mean, we know that the Navy's got a lot of really difficult structures and platforms to try to build and design in the next 10, 20, 50 years. And we're definitely, the strategic focus is to try to bring the right people to the table. And a big part of that, Josh, is to really educate the right ones and bring the right ones to the table. So it's not just once they get there, it's, as you say, it's a K through 12, it's a re-education process, it's an apprentice program. There's a lot of need there, certainly.
Yeah, and thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. And for folks, we actually shared this morning the success of our MEEP program, right? Training over 8,000 folks over the last 2.5 years and really having an impact that'll last and continue to have a legacy, and the work that we've done around the workshopping and underserved communities, separating veterans and that kind of thing. And I agree. I mean, there's a tremendous opportunity, but it's the tree that falls in the forest. There's no one to hear, right? So we need to make sure that folks understand and know what these are, the opportunities, the pathways, those kind of things. Hareen, can you talk a little bit from your perspective on the economic side? Obviously, in your role, you see a lot of these programs and a lot of opportunity around here. Can you share a little bit from your perspective?
Yeah, no, this is great. Obviously we hear a lot about workforce and the importance of it, especially coming out of the pandemic. Like, this is what we've learned coming out of the pandemic. This has been said a million times. Like, we reevaluate the need to have a domestic skilled workforce and domestic skilled resilient supply chain, right? And you all are at the forefront in helping create that. This is why the president put in $2 billion for sector partnerships in the rescue plan to help try to bring local organizations, manufacturing firms, training providers together. We really feel bullish on sector partnerships. We really feel that's one way where a consortium of manufacturing firms, particularly small and mediums, who may not have the capacity stand-up training themselves or support a registered apprenticeship themselves, can come together with backbone organizations such as community groups, community colleges, local high schools, local economic development groups to develop this sector-based training where you identify the foundational skills you need for most manufacturing jobs and then have the one-off pieces for the skills adjacency. There is some foundational needs throughout some of this work, some foundational competencies when it comes to some STEM type areas. And let's face it, some folks may not come out of that through the K through 12 system. And so in the meantime, let's focus on trying to build the skills adjacency through the sector-based partnerships and also start investing. Part of the sector-based is also investing in your local high schools to have a pre-apprenticeship build out to a registered apprenticeship so you have a pathway. It also involves high school teachers. It involves guidance counselors who are severely underpaid and may not understand the new manufacturing that's happening. It's not dirty anymore. This is clean. It's cool. It's what's hip. I think this is what is needed. And so we're investing a lot. So the president put in $2 billion in ARP. We have $5 billion potential for BBB. But regardless of what happens on the Hill, you all are trying to make it happen. And resources may only go so far, but coordinating together, if we can reduce the coordination costs, we can amplify all the efforts you all are trying to do in the front line. So it's getting the local needs, identifying the local skills, identifying the foundational needs, and then figuring out what do we need to upskill for our incumbent workers and what skilling do we need for the folks coming in. Some manufacturing USA firms are doing this very well, but identifying the skills they might need in the new technologies coming in the next 10, 15, 20 years, you probably want to start investing in K-12 now. For the technology needs today, you probably want to invest in the existing workforce pieces. So I would encourage you all to think a little creatively. If you have any questions, we're really bullish on this. There's still there's a good jobs challenge available from the Department of Commerce today. And we encourage you all to try to find some backbone organizations. So whether it's community colleges, whether it's your local economic development group, whether it's the Teamsters, whether it's another training provider, come together. And these funds are available for you all. And it's a competitive grant, but I really think this piece is provide a good opportunity for you all to find some funding to help stand this up. Is that getting at what you want, Josh?
It's exactly what I think we need, right? And I think one of the things that hopefully folks are starting to at least put together, right? I'm not looking at the chat window, so I don't know what's happening over there. But hopefully folks are starting to tie those things into, hey, we talked about where we're at and where we're going, right? And then when you hear you both speak about these opportunities, it's all the stuff that we're kind of pulling together, right? So when we talk apprenticeship, we put together an apprenticeship pathway. Right? How do we go from youth and pre-apprenticeship all the way through high school apprenticeship into reskill, upskill, working all the way over to the Navy's 3-tiered apprenticeship pathway funded out of OBNAV, right? So we're trying to solve some of that and bring those things to the table. When we talk about things like working across the institutes around that cross functionality of a technician or a workforce or those types of things so that we can kind of build some of that common competency, we've been embedded in that competency work so that we can align those things. We have some potential projects coming up where literally we're going to kind of build the card catalog to the library that looks at 100 job roles around additive, identifies those, says, hey, here's the competencies we need, which are born from the additive manufacturing body of knowledge, so we can connect the dots. And we know as folks transition around the workforce, we know where they need upskilled specifically, not just in general, and not kind of, I don't want to say wasting time, but are faster to market, right? So that we can be more agile like the technology can be, as well. And so I think that all of those things marry tremendously well. They resonate. I think we all share the sentiment of let's focus on the amplification and deployment of these existing things instead of saying, oh, we spent the last 2 years building the same thing that's, it's just a different shade of blue car. It's still a blue car. We have that blue car. Maybe we need to, change the wheels and the rims and make it, look good in this regional environment or whatever that may be. But, let's start with what we have, tailor that piece in, get there faster.
There was a question I see in the chat about where do we find this grant. So if you go to the EDA's website for Department of Commerce, they have a Good Jobs Challenge. You'll be able to find there's a the information on the Good Jobs Challenge $2 billion grant for sector-based partnership.
Yeah, and thanks for following.
Yeah, and Josh, real quick, just to not to take up too much time, but I really, it's exciting. The when Harin, you talked about kind of leveraging and working together with other groups, and that's something I've been very gratified that all of the 13 different funded MEEP participants have come together, and really we have encouraged this to leverage each other's best practices and really leverage each other's successes. And of course, America Makes is a leader in that, but there's other leaders, and really I think they've done a great job. And I stress to them many times that we're spending our own money on these, right? I mean, we're taxpayers, and this money didn't just fall from the sky magically, and so we want to get the most out of it. And I think they've all done a great job. I mentioned I was down in Norfolk, Newport News Shipbuilding, worked with Operation Next, really interesting program out of Lyft, which is re-educating veterans and their spouses in manufacturing skills. So there's a lot of opportunities. I encourage people to, Josh, you may have already mentioned it, but DoD STEM website has a great website with a lot of resources, and certainly I'm sure reach out to any of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that. And we'll be, sharing this. Cindy does a great opportunity to bring that entire MEEP network together several times a year where we do talk about collaboration. We shared some examples of how we work across the institutes even this morning, to make sure that, again, we're not starting at zero, we're starting somewhere along that spectrum to amplify. So thank you both for that. If I could pivot a little bit, and talk a little bit, we talked a lot about member engagement and stakeholder partner engagement, right? And what that looks like across our portfolio, right? And so we had, and I talked through these roles that go from everything to leadership in the portfolio to subject matter experts, whereas other folks are saying, hey, let's exploit that. And in a way, I mean, these programs are funded from all varieties of resources. I always joke with our internal team and I say, this is your good tax dollars at work in some sense of the word, right? This is our part, and we take some pride in that. But, we talk with a lot of members and partners and stakeholders regionally, locally, nationally, to kind of exploit it in a way. Take these tools, use them, take them in your local community. Our team is here to help you do that, in a big way. And we've pulled, some folks that are doing that, and they all have a little bit different perspective as well. So maybe Jessica, I'll start with you as well. And Harin, I know you may have to drop off, and that's perfectly fine. So feel free to leave when you need to. And I know Jessica has a big 10th anniversary that's tonight too. So we appreciate you spending some time. So let's start with you as well. Maybe talk about some of the value that you see in collaboration, taking some of these assets out of our portfolio, using them, deploying them, and how that works and helps you drive your mission as well.
Absolutely. Well, and it was a great setup in the answer to the last question, because as I mentioned, the Mahoning Valley Manufacturers Coalition, which is situated in Youngstown, Ohio, and the region around America Makes headquarters, we are an industry sector partnership, which means that our manufacturers they actually organize themselves. So we're celebrating the 10th year of our organization tonight, which is pretty special. And, they came together completely around this idea of, manufacturing workforce challenges and forecasted shortages. And we all know in this work that it's pretty multifaceted, right? So we need to do a great job with exciting young people and guidance counselors and parents and community members about manufacturing careers and these new technologies, while at the same time making sure that our education and training landscape is organized, that those career pathways with stackable credentials are organized in such a way that it's seamless for someone to enter into and advance along these career pathways. And so we've been doing a lot of space on all facets of these challenges. But more recently, we chose to take a step back. The pandemic kind of put a put a damper on our youth outreach activities for a bit, and we thought, we've tried a lot of things over our past 10 years. We've got this great, strong speakers bureau, if you will, of manufacturers who like to volunteer and go out into classrooms and talk to, bring tours in through their facilities. But we thought, how can we really be more strategic to make sure that we have something to offer at every age band, that it's a continuum of interaction and engagement with young people, and that we also are really looking to make sure that it's sustainable. We have the most impact, but that we're also, looking at making sure that when we send a volunteer out into a classroom, it's sustainable, or are there bigger ways that we can have larger impact? And so we engaged America Makes in that discussion, and was, really pleased to find that Josh has been working really hard and has a great, a great set of tools and resources that we can draw upon here at the local level. And so, because this work is so challenging, and because there is work to be done on so many different fronts, there is no reason to reinvent the wheel. And so when we find a tool or a resource that is as well thought out as, say, an additive edge resource, that has had educator input, that is exciting and thoughtful about the way to engage young people and really stakeholders at all age levels, then we want to take avail of that. And so I think that's a great example of how, having a centralized, knowledgeable resource like America Makes, thinking through, these kinds of strategies and building tools that then we all across the country can be drawing upon. We certainly have found a lot of value in that and are excited to be, partnering with Josh and the team to, to take those out into districts. We were in a group of superintendents just earlier this week going through this kind of rethinking exercise, and manufacturers started talking about how we need to make sure that young people understand these new technologies, but they also understand how to be an entrepreneur and what 21st century skills are all about. And I said, oh, great, I have a solution for that, additive edge. So anyway, just one example, but how we're, really excited to strengthen the partnership with America Makes and draw on these tools and resources and hopefully contribute back some of, our spin on things in the way that we're able to implement them in the Mahoning Valley.
Yeah, and thank you, Jessica. And I think this exemplifies this national strategy, local impact, right? I mean, you build a tool on the national stage, and Lawrence and Mike are going to talk about, being part of building this stuff, right? Being the subject matter expert that contributes the industry and defense voice. And we've engaged, dozens of members in those types of activities, right? And we anchor those back to the body of knowledge. We anchor that in a credential pathway that starts with the Girl Scouts patch way down, K6 elementary school, and goes all the way through reskill and upskill of manufacturers, incumbent workers, and those types of things. And so we're excited to leverage these and get these out. I mean, obviously, Jessica's been an awesome champion for us locally, right in the backyard of Youngstown. It's a renewed dedication to make sure that we're successful at home in a certain sense. We have a lot of activity. Jessica, we talked about the GM reinvestment project actually this morning. I highlighted that as one of our snapshots of success. Specifically, we are working in underserved communities around the city of Youngstown as well with Jessica and the entire team there. An organization called Bright that focuses, you heard of Vaulted Valley earlier today, some of those buzzwords and those types of things. So, it shows what we can do on the regional level, and we can unplug that and take it to different regions, right? And now we have that playbook that we can deploy across a variety of regions with different players, but, and tailor that within the region. So thank you so much. Wish you the best of luck on tonight's celebration as well. So pivoting from that, I want to pivot to Mike Vasquez. You heard a little bit about his introduction with the AMX, the Advanced Manufacturing Experience, and those types of things. The really cool part is that, Dr. Waters sitting right next to him on my screen. I don't know if it's the same for everybody, but Mike was able to leverage some of the MEP funded activity, right? And some of this was out of the NIST CARES Act funds, in those types of things. So, you can see just on the screen here today, leveraging projects from one another, making sure these things and these resources continue to live on, and those types of things, and being able, as a great example of, a member taking some of these tools, deploying them, finding an opportunity. And Mike, do you want to, share some of your experiences locally? Obviously share the, the program and that kind of stuff you've worked on there local in Chicago and the West Side.
Absolutely. Thanks, Josh. And thanks for putting all this together. So for me, I mean, we've all seen the headlines about supply chain disruptions and how the manufacturing base in the US has been eroded over the last 30, 40 years. And so from where I sit, and we consult with both Fortune 100 companies as well as small, medium-sized companies, I see this firsthand, kind of traveling around the country, speaking with these companies about how 3D printing technologies are going to solve some of these problems and bring some of these capabilities back to the US. But inevitably, all these conversations, we hear the same thing over and over again. Like, hey, this technology is great. Like, we can print in metal and titanium and whatever the new flavor of the month is. But how can I actually hire the people I need to run this equipment or set up a facility for me? Where are they? But on the flip side, when I get back to Chicago after some of these trips, like all I hear on the news is kind of lack of jobs and opportunities across many of the cities, neighborhoods that are around here. And inevitably, kind of, if you get kind of down below the surface, it's not necessarily an unwillingness to work hard. It's really the fact that people have no idea that a lot of these jobs exist in additive manufacturing. I mean, we're here, America Makes, like everyone's essentially a subject matter expert compared to my grandma or someone else here, right? And it used to be the case that you might have someone in your family that worked in manufacturing 30, 40, 20, 30 years ago. I mean, that was more common. Today, I think 60, 70% of jobs are in the service sector. So that's not always the case. And it's also the fact that manufacturing doesn't have a great reputation for a lot of people. It still has that kind of dirty connotation. You hear all about, like, the people that do know about manufacturing, it's probably in a negative context because they were their parent or uncle or grandparent got kind of their job shipped overseas. And not to mention all this talk of advanced technology and AI and robotics kind of taking some of these jobs. And so that's where I got to thinking about a year ago. I was like, hey, maybe there's a solution here, kind of taking a creative path around it, to show people what career paths in additive manufacturing could look like, show them kind of what's happening in these white windowless buildings, nondescript on the side of the highway that we all pass and that some of us work at on a day-to-day basis, right? Like, how do you get in there and see some of these machines? And so that's why we started the AMX program, the Advanced Manufacturing Experience. It all came together as a month-long program, kind of located in one of the most served areas of the country. Partnered with some local neighborhood organizations to kind of get some people in there, ages 21 to 50, to kind of work on this challenge. And so for me, it involved three things. Kind of one of the first calls was to Josh and the America Makes team to say, hey, like, what can we use? I don't want to build curriculum. I want to deliver it and kind of pair it with some other things. And that's where we got some access to credential curriculum that also helped kind of give folks that went through this something to show for it after the fact. Second, we wanted to really think about, it's not just about training, it's about kind of who you know. And so we partnered each of the students with mentors in the industry, as well as setting up hands-on in-person training to show people kind of what do these facilities look like? What does it look like to be someone that works in these jobs? So we also partnered with America Makes members like EOS and Renishaw, Impossible Objects, to take them kind of what's going on. And so it worked. I mean, there were several students that went through this program. I hired two of them because they were awesome, and now they're kicking butt on some projects I'm working on. We kind of brought the entrepreneurship aspect to it, and one participant is joining an accelerator program based in Chicago to take one of her ideas around 3D printing a product into the reality. And so for us, like, we can work, and we're going to continue to work to solve this problem kind of 10 to 15 people at a time. But we can't kind of continue to strengthen U.S. manufacturing without the help of America Makes and what they're doing, and Josh and the team are doing. And so we did this as kind of a pro bono voluntary effort on ramp to manufacturing jobs and kind of give people opportunity. And so we're happy to kind of share insights, kind of materials, learnings with any organization that wants to replicate this in their region. We're hoping to build it out as well. So thanks for all your help, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Mike's been a little bit humble about what he did out there, right? Obviously a fantastic amount of work, and we had the pleasure of getting to host the Secretary of Commerce and her visit out to meet Mike and the team and celebrate the work that's been done, along with 3 members of Congress, the mayor's office of Chicago, and those kind of things. So I think having the opportunity to put a national spotlight on some of this stuff, right, and celebrate these successes, around here in the work that Mike's put into this. It's nights and weekends. We know that he's got little ones at home and those kind of things. I had the pleasure of meeting the whole family. We were out there, and those kind of things. And so it's great work. I've had a chance to meet these students, spend some time, sit, myself and a couple of our team members were out and visited and those kind of things. I mean, it's real success, right? This is impact. We can talk about, hey, we've impacted 14,000 folks this year, right? These are some of those numbers. And this is the important part. This is the fun part. This is why I get excited and I talk too long and get long-winded. This is all it. This is the real stuff. And so we really appreciate that. This is why we're doing what we're doing. And lastly, I want to turn to Lawrence, because again, Lawrence was part of that team that said, hey, this is what should be in the content. This is what the assessments should, these are the test questions. These are the performance assessments, those kind of things. I mean, he was leading a lot of that work with a group of educators and a group of industry members and workforce folks saying, this is the important stuff. This is what industry needs and those kind of things. And so Lawrence, can you talk a little bit about your experience from that side of the, equation as well?
Yeah, certainly. So, first, thanks for the invite. Really appreciate it. And, being able to talk about additive, I'm really passionate about the technology. It's a lot of fun. And, when I was asked to be a part of the AM credentialing process, I'm thinking to myself, I get to do more additive, after work. This is great. Why not? But, evolution of emerging technologies, typically outpaces your standardization, your common practices. And, I was fortunate enough to participate in the system through America Makes, to really translate the industrial needs that we see in aerospace and defense into a system, thereby laying down that foundation of a homogeneous, additive, ideally ASTM-driven language and process. And, what would I want to see from a new engineer coming into the workforce? What should they know? What are they able to execute on? And how can we best harness that energy and passion, right? I don't need to say that, we need an agile workforce, that's tuned to how fast this technology is growing. And, industrially, we often find ourselves having to break out of our traditionally trained roles, right, to better encapsulate additive potential. And that holistic approach is really enabled by, what we've been doing with America Makes and their workforce development engagements. Everyone knows AM is a unique technology, right? We can put it in front of a person that's really early in their professional, even academic career. And they're able to grasp it really quickly and start building these foundational skills through which, this educational engagement scales up really well into an industrial application. One metaphor I always use is you can buy one of these small material extrusion machines on Amazon for $150. You can get your free CAD package, your free slicer. And I would say 85% of those design rules and capabilities scales up to these industrial, powder bed fusion machines. That learning can happen so early on in their career. It's tremendous value, and being able to participate with America Makes to help shape that talent pipeline to better develop, this enormous potential of this growing and kind of unseen workforce. And, pun intended, laser focus it into, designing and building something that's really disruptive. I mean, it's exciting. It's a lot of fun. And it's really, in some cases pretty challenging where, I have to retrain some pretty senior engineers who are somewhat calcified in how they think design should be. And then how do we, crack that open and say, all right, listen, the rules are different. The language is different. and how do we start homogenizing that, and so that we can move fast and really kind of capitalize on the intrinsic value of additive as this cool technology that is moving out of prototyping and tooling and starting to go into production and actual end use, especially in aerospace and defense.
Yeah, and thank you, Lawrence, for that, your perspective on that, right? I mean, some of those points, when we first went through some of these credentialing programs, especially in the high school realm, we're looking to build this credential pathway. When we took those to what, were some high-powered pre-engineering high schools, one of the first things that came to mind, that folks said, this is hard. And I said, yeah, because because you teach CAD doesn't mean you and some of those ASTM language and terms and making sure that students truly are ready. And so it should be hard, right? It should validate that skill set and that competency and those kind of things. And it's not that was an even playing field. We had 6 high school instructors on that team that said, yeah, this is appropriate for the age, and those kind of things. So we made sure it was vetted. We made sure it could happen and those kind of things. And part of that, and one of the reasons we're K to Gray, is because, candidly, we have to go to the widest part of the funnel. Yes, we can reskill and we can upskill and we can help that agile workforce we need, right? But we need to make sure that innovation can be pushed from the bottom up to, just like it was with CAD software versus hand drafting with pencil and paper. And typically in the K-16 pipeline, you're getting more than one in the bang for your buck, right? So when you engage and inspire one, usually you're getting someone else at home, a mom, a dad, a parent, a guardian, a brother, a sister, an aunt, and uncle, everyone. And we all just were, maybe at Thanksgiving dinner or whatever that may be. And we're sharing what we're excited about, right? We're sharing our work. My family's probably tired of hearing me talk about my work, and those types of things. And so we all know additive can be an excellent way to create that excitement. And like I said, I mean, yeah, we're focused on the additive workforce, but we also know that we have a pretty big responsibility to introduce advanced manufacturing to a lot of these folks. And when I say student, I mean student of any age, truly. And so I don't see any questions in the chat at the moment. If anyone has some, please put them in there. We have about 5 minutes left in the panel group. As we kind of close out, anything, Jessica, I know you need to go. You have all of your event stuff going on, so feel free to drop when you need to. But any last closing remarks from the panel, and then I'll kind of close this out, and we'll pass on. I believe Ashley's up next on our agenda. All right, I will take silence as a no, even though everyone's on mute, and it's possible you were trying to talk. So first and foremost, I thank this group of individuals. Not only has it been a pleasure to have you here today, it's a pleasure to work with you every day. I candidly mean that. You all know that. I share with our team every day. It is a blessed privilege to do the work we do, to have the impact and be the human side of our work. Absolutely. And so we've talked a lot about ways to engage membership. We have over 50 members that engage in our portfolio every day. And we have over 36 partners that engage. So when we talk about, getting this out into small businesses, we have small businesses that are part of our portfolio and creation. We have small businesses that use it. We have large manufacturers, obviously, Lawrence, in your situation, and you have Mike, the small business, sitting together, using these, deploying them uniquely and those kind of things. And I think that, we know that we need talent. We know that we need talent that's prepared and ready, that's capable. We know that we have to be competitive with that talent to be competitive in manufacturing. We're here. We're ready. Join us. That's what AM Nation's all about. That's what our portfolio is here to do. So we certainly appreciate everyone. We appreciate all the work and the partnership and collaboration of you all as well. And, certainly appreciate you spending the afternoon with us.